comparing today's game with yesterday's game of G2, it's obviously completely different. I think that today G2 could not have his comfort picks or the picks that they had yesterday, especially with the Heimerdinger, but also the carry that Wunder was playing was a bit different from what we are used to, and he cannot accomplish the same objective that he can with the likes of a Nurgot, an Aatrox, or maybe even a Camille. And also the decision of leaving Olaf for a last pick, or leaving Jungler to the last pick in order to pick an Olaf, which I think he won't be a decisive jungler against what PvP had. I think that it obviously influenced a lot, and the main reason for that, I think, is the fact that now their bot lane is not playing as safe. And even though I think that Yarnan did a really good game after mid game, the fact that they couldn't have what they are used to with the Heimer meant that the bot lane tower now felt too early. And after the bot turret fell, Wunder does not have the enough time that he had on previous games, especially with Heimerdinger and some of them with Jhin as well, in order to scale up and to get a good advantage on top lane, so that after he can influence the game, especially at his famous split push. They should keep with, obviously, Heimerdinger. I expect it to be permaban. I would like to see G2 with more or safer bot lanes, not those kind of scaling skill matchups, but a bot lane with, or AD carries with the likes of Jhin, with the likes of Varus and Ashe, a bit more of utility, but not only the utility, but also what it brings in terms of wave control, which I think it's way more important than they have in Kai'Sa, so they can also stop enemy teams to attack their bot lanes, which is a big strength for a lot of the teams on their groups, so that they cannot take the bot tower early, and that Wunder gets a bit more time, and also Jankos gets a bit more aware of what the game plan is and towards what lanes he needs to play on. I also think that on a lot of cases he got caught a couple of times, which was not ideal. Obviously, and that allowed also the PvP to get a good snowball. And even though Wadid was doing a good job in terms of threatening with the Rakan flanks, that still was not enough because of the advantage that they got from the laning phase, and also by the setup that they were doing in order to stop those flanks. Vitality once again was a roller coaster, just like yesterday, which in a way it's their style. I really like to see that Vitality, in my opinion, is getting a better team mid-game, not late game yet, but mid-game they seem to be a better team at the moment. I think that today they controlled side lanes better than what they did in the summer split, but at that expense they forgot about the early game power that they had. Also, obviously the picks changed a bit, but once Kikis does that route of starting red golems, and since the bot lane leashed, he wants to go for the bot crab and also to give the push on the bot lane, since they are obviously stronger on that side of the map early on, and trying to split the map. Obviously Cabo Shard cannot get caught on those situations, and it happened a couple of times, which leads to some kind of deficit and some kind of freedom that then Vitality managed to balance when after the TP that Cloud9 did to the bot side, and Cabo Shard got the free hits on the tower, then TP'd in order to get a defense on the bot tower, and simultaneously, since their bot recalled already and Cloud9's bot lane didn't, that gives room for Attila and Jack Troll to be able to take the first tower on the bot side. They also managed to get the Herald, and that was a big turnaround in the early game. And after they got those advantages, then it was quite obvious how both teams like to play. Vitality trying to 1-3-1, Cloud9 trying to constantly engage, and since Vitality had a good early game advantage, they were taking all the fights, which is not ideal on their comp. Their 1-3-1 would be way stronger, especially with how strong LeBlanc was, and also taking in consideration the amount of engage and the comp that Cloud9 built on. Obviously, this wasn't necessarily the reason why Vitality lost the game. I think that they were getting outscaled, that those fights, even though they got 1 ace and the Baron, after the Baron they could never reach to the tier 3 towers, and after that situation on the game, then Cloud9 clearly outscaled and they had to mechanically outplay in order to win that game, because at that point as well the 1-3-1 was really hard to execute. So I think that Draft has a bit of blame in the Vitality game, but it was also good to see that Vitality, even though the circumstances were not ideal going into that game, they still fought really hard. They still showed some good mid lane sideways control, and I'm expecting them to do better in this Worlds than I was previously expecting on. Fnatic showed today that they are kind of the big hope of Europe, especially with Caps. This game was clearly a Caps show. Solo killing numerous times, getting a lot of side lane pressure. That play that he did at the end when he managed to Zhonya's avoid the knock-up, planting the first E of the stun before the Zhonya's and the second E after, on the exact timing that when he would leave, that the enemy would still be stunned, and then managed to have 2 Qs, then the Triumph coming in. That was absolutely insane. And no, it was not a surrender coming in from 100 Thieves. That was indeed Reckless finishing the game. But what was impressive about Fnatic is that I was expecting them to come with the style that they had on the summer split, especially towards the end with Reckless playing, when they would just farm, and they would expect their carries to outperform the enemy carries on a team fight situation. But it wasn't the case. We saw a very aggressive Fnatic, a very good support from Broxa into Caps, so we could play aggressive on that lane, and we saw numerous times Fnatic trying out to use the pressure that Caps could get in order to dive bot, but it was on the Rakan level 6 and on the TP of Sion that they managed to, and obviously on the first solo kill of Caps, that they managed to find the perfect window in order to rotate everyone bot side and completely open the game. And after that, it was not only a Caps show, even though it was mainly a Caps show, but a overall Fnatic show on how to snowball properly, how to avoid big risks, but at the same time going in when they had to, setting up vision really well, and then obviously closing the game in a really good style. So I think that G2, I think they are actually really good at adapting. In my opinion, they showed that they could adapt from the end of the split through the gauntlet. So I think that they will recognize that now Heimerdinger will not be available anymore for them. Jhin, Ashe and Varus, I think that they will come up a bit more for the side of G2 bot lane, and more AD damage carries top lane instead of AP damages. And I don't think they will ever save the counter pick for jungle, which in my opinion doesn't make any sense. So I still think that G2 has a slight chance of making out of groups, even though I think it's reduced, even though I think it's small. I think that Africa and the Flash Wolves will make it out of that groups, even though if Africa is not doing well this time. But PvP also showed that they are a team to consider. So I think G2 is probably the team in Europe that has less chances to show good performance and to leave groups, even though I think Vitality has a harder group. But at the same time, I also think it's possible, because I trust that they know how to adapt. In the case of Vitality, it's really hard to predict how it will be going forward. I think that they have good ideas. I think that today they lost mostly because of the draft. I think that they will fix this. I consider Yamato to be a really smart coach, and they will find solutions for their blue side issues where they cannot counter pick a mid lane. But at the same time, if we see Vitality play, it's a constant roller coaster and a constant coin flip. So I think that Vitality is one of those teams that can perfectly lose against the worst team at Worlds, but can also win against the best team at Worlds. So what can we expect from Vitality? Uncertainty. We cannot expect a defined result from them. We can expect that they can win every game and they can lose every game, especially in this best of one scenarios. In terms of Fnatic, I expect them to actually win the group. I think that they showed a really strong performance. I think that at the level that they are playing right now, they are a strong contender to semifinals at Worlds. I think they probably are one of the strongest European teams that we ever had at Worlds, and I'm really excited about it. I think that also seeing the IG game, I think that they will actually destroy IG, not destroy, but I think that they will win against IG on a comfortable way. We'll see about that tomorrow, but I'm expecting them to be a strong contender to semifinals. I think that they also have a really good adaptation to go through best of fives, and even though we only saw one game of them, it was quite impressive. It was quite impressive, not only to see that Capsis can still play at a really high level internationally, but also that Fnatic is getting a bit more loose and a bit less dependent on only outperforming on team fights later on, which was a really good step for them, and I think that they will definitely be the hope of Europe for these Worlds.